Hello, my bookish darlings! Every 6 months, I recap and review the books I read through Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial method of picking books for my TBR based solely on their covers. Who am I? I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. By the way, if you missed my reviews for the first half of 2022, I'll put a link up here. Now, for the month of July, I chose the young adult novel Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. From the cover, I thought it might be a retelling or inspired by Alice in Wonderland. Spoiler alert, it was not. Even though it was in the young adult category, it reads to me like an adult horror novel. The story jumps around between two POV characters during two different time periods. Most chapters are from Ivy, the main character's point of view, in the present day. The other chapters are from Ivy's mother's point of view when she was a teenager. The story starts out with Ivy and her dick of a boyfriend almost hitting a nude girl with their car. The nude girl is very freaky, and we come to find out that witchcraft is involved. Apparently, some very bad decisions involving witchcraft goes back to when Ivy's mother was a teenager. It's an okay story. I'm not crazy when a book jumps around between timelines, and the story didn't feel terribly original, but I did think the writing was well done, the characters interesting, and it kept me entertained. I'm going to go ahead and give Our Crooked Hearts my blessing. But this is not a strong recommendation from me. What is a strong recommendation is if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. In August, I picked two books, The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia and A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. Both these books were in my top 10 reads for 2022. Starting with The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, this is, of course, a reimagining of H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau, only this time we're set in South America and focusing on Dr. Moreau's daughter, Carlotta. I felt this was more of a character-driven story than plot-driven, but I did find all the characters very engaging, especially Carlotta and Dr. Moreau's overseer, Montgomery Loughton. This is a Gothic reimagining with a South American twist, and it definitely gets my blessing. I can't say enough good things about the second book, Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is the second story in her Monk and Robot series. This is a solar punk novel, imagining a utopian world where technology and nature are in harmony. A young, non-binary monk, sibling Dex, is searching for meaning in life and becomes an itinerant tea monk, traveling from village to village, and between one of those journeys he meets Mosscap, a robot, and robots in this world haven't been seen in hundreds of years. This is a short, novella-length, quiet, philosophical story, but also the type of story that really makes you think and feel. Of course, it gets my blessing. In September, I picked Babel by R.F. Kuang. You may have heard me talk about this book a lot already, but suffice to say, it was my top book of 2022. It is a historical fantasy of the Opium Wars during Great Britain's colonial era about a boy named Robin who was half Chinese, half white, who was trained in Oxford with a few other minority students to master the magic of silver. I think this will be a classic novel of speculative fiction, which absolutely gets my blessing. There was another book I looked at during that month in Shelve It or Shove It, which I eventually did read, and that was The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. This is a horror novel which did something for me that I have not experienced in a long time. I was introduced to a completely new, unique type of monster. Book eaters are human-looking creatures that eat books. Maybe they're constructs from aliens sent to Earth to gather information. Maybe they're not. We never know. Not even the book eaters know. This story is about one book eater, Devon, who is a woman who has grown up on a forced diet of fairy tale princesses. And I just love that is literal. She was fed a diet of fairy tales. Anyway, since there aren't many female book eaters and the population is close to dying out and becoming extinct, female book eaters are relegated to baby-making roles, passed around to various book eater families to have babies. Devon is trapped in this second-class existence and tries to break free. The horror element isn't apparent at first, but as the story progresses, it becomes darker and more macabre, and I loved it. The Book Eaters gets my blessing. There were a lot of books I wanted to read in October, but I picked Fairy Tale by Stephen King for Shelve It or Shove It. This was not my favorite King novel, but it was marketed as a fantasy. It still read horror novel to me, framed as a portal fantasy. My favorite part, however, was before the main character, Charlie, found the portal to another world. I liked it more in the real world, which is very strange for me. Anyway, I loved his relationship with his father, who was a recovering alcoholic, the cranky ancient neighbor, and the neighbor's dog, who steals the show, in my opinion. I'll definitely give Fairy Tale my blessing. But there are definitely other Stephen King novels I would recommend before this one. The two other books in October that I saw, I also eventually read, and that was Nona the Ninth by Tamysn Muir and The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. Both were books in a series I was already reading. Nona the Ninth was in my top books of 2022. The Locked Tomb series is about lesbian necromancers in space. And these books have gotten a lot of buzz, which I think is well deserved. Each book in the series is about a different character, and the elevated writing of the author has created a unique voice for each book, something that I don't see very often, if at all, and is certainly why I believe Tamysn Muir is considered an outstanding writer, at least in a technical sense. My only complaint is the plots are very convoluted and complicated, but that does not stop Nona the Ninth from getting my blessing. Finally, I read The Golden Enclaves, the last book in Naomi Novik's Scholomance trilogy. I think Naomi Novik is one of the top fantasy writers of today, and I totally loved the first book in this trilogy, A Deadly Education. It's a dark academia story with some pretty unique world building, where those who can do magic attract cosmic horror type monsters. So those with magic are forced into a school on another dimension where they either master magic or die trying. In my opinion, the second book in the series, The Last Graduate, did not live up to the first book, and this last book, The Golden Enclaves, I thought was even weaker. I hate doing this because Naomi Novik is one of my favorites, but I'm going to have to zap The Golden Enclaves. If you want to read Naomi Novik, try one of her standalones like Spinning Silver or Uprooted, or if you just want a fun, quick, wonderful historical fantasy, read His Majesty's Dragon. In November, I picked Station Eternity by Muir Lafferty. This also made it to my top 10 of 2022 list, and I think it was a lot of fun. Part science fiction, part mystery. It's about a woman named Mallory Viridian with the bad luck that people around her, human people, seem to get murdered a lot. She hides out on Station Eternity where there's not many humans, and Station Eternity is a sentient space station which is home for other alien races, including rock people and a hive mind of wasps. But when a space shuttle full of humans heads to Station Eternity, Mallory is worried that her bad luck may come back. It does. And more. Station Eternity gets my blessing. Finally, in December, I picked The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, the sequel to The City We Became. N.K. Jemisin is, of course, known for one of the great science fiction series of all time, the Broken Earth trilogy. However, this duology is a big departure from her other work, being a contemporary Lovecraftian cosmic horror story. The world building is pretty neat. When a city becomes large and mature enough, it comes alive and chooses avatars to represent it. However, this also attracts an alien entity that tries to destroy or abort a city that is trying to awaken. When New York awakens in the modern day, rather than just one avatar, it splinters into an avatar among each of the different New York boroughs, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Long Island, etc. I have to say, I enjoyed the first book, The City We Became, more than the second book. From the afterword, there is an admission by N.K. Jemisin that the second book was written during and influenced by both COVID and Donald Trump. The World We Make is a lot more blatantly political than The City We Became, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but Jemisin states that this was originally meant to be a trilogy, but her heart just wasn't into it, so it got truncated to a duology. I'll go ahead and give this book my blessing. Only to say that if you like the first book, you definitely probably want to pick up the sequel. So those are the 10 books I've read during the last half of 2022, which I either picked up or found through Shelve or Shove It. Have you read any of these books? Let me know down in the comments and whether you agreed with me or not. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.